The transport ship landed on Station 7 just as the artificial lights shifted to evening mode. The station floated in the empty space between two solar systems, far from any planet, far from any war. It was a place of healing, a place where broken things came to be fixed. Dr. Park stood at the docking bay window and watched the ship settle onto the platform. She was a small woman with tired eyes and gentle hands. Her black hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore the plain gray uniform of the station's medical staff. She had been working here for 3 years now, helping creatures from dozens of different worlds learn to live again after terrible things had happened to them. But today was different. Today she felt nervous. The doors of the transport opened, and 4 armed guards walked out first. They were tall beings with pale blue skin and 4 arms each. They moved carefully, watching something behind them with worried faces. Then came the cage. It was a small cage, made of dark metal bars. Inside, pressed into the far corner, was a creature no bigger than a human child. Had read the files. She knew what she was looking at. A cub. A species that looked like a mix between a cat and a small bear, with soft golden fur and large eyes that could see in the dark. They were known across the galaxy for their kindness and their need for touch. They communicated emotions through physical contact. A without touch was like a human without words. This cub's name was. He was 6 cycles old, which meant he was like an 8-year-old human child. And according to the files, he had not let anyone touch him in over 1 standard year. Station director walked up beside. He was the largest she had ever met, with a deep voice that rumbled like distant thunder. He had 4 eyes, and right now, all of them were fixed on the cage being carried past them. "The Syndicate," said quietly. "You know what they do." Nodded, she knew. The Syndicate ran illegal fighting rings across the outer systems. They took young creatures from peaceful species and tortured them until they became violent. Then they put them in arenas and made people pay to watch them fight. The lucky ones died quickly. The unlucky ones survived. Had survived. 3 specialists have tried to help him, continued. A elder from a mind healer. Even one of the singing monks from the Temple of Quiet Stars. All of them gave up. They said his mind is too damaged. They said he will never heal. Watched as the guards carried the cage down the corridor toward the rehabilitation wing. Had not moved from his corner. His golden fur was dirty and matted. There were scars visible on his small body, places where the fur would never grow back. But it was his eyes that hurt the most. They were empty, like windows into a house where no one lived anymore. "Why did you call me here?" she asked. "Why a human?" Made a sound that might have been a sigh. "Because humans are strange, Dr. Park. Your species bonds with everything. You keep predators as pets. You talk to plants. You form emotional connections with machines. The galaxy does not understand how you do this, but we have seen it work. Perhaps you can reach this child when others cannot." Did not answer right away. She thought about her grandmother back on Earth in a small village in Korea. Her grandmother had once spent an entire summer sitting beside an injured dog that growled at anyone who came close. Every day she brought it food. Every day she sat nearby and hummed old songs. She never tried to touch it. She just waited. By the end of summer, that dog slept at the foot of her bed and followed her everywhere. "Where is his room?" asked. The rehabilitation habitat was large and designed to feel natural. There were soft surfaces for climbing and hiding, warm lights that mimicked sunlight, a small pool of water in one corner. Everything was meant to help traumatized creatures feel safe. Sat in the darkest corner, behind a pile of cushions he had arranged into a wall. Only his eyes were visible, catching the light like 2 small moons. He was watching the door. Stood at the observation window for a long time. She noticed how he flinched when the ventilation system made a soft sound. She noticed how his ears moved constantly, tracking every noise. She noticed how he had positioned himself so that nothing could approach him from behind. He was not a wild animal. He was a child who had learned that the world only wanted to hurt him. Dr. Lee, colleague and friend, came to stand beside her. Was also Korean, a few years younger than, with sharp eyes and a quick mind. She specialized in xenobiology, studying alien body chemistry. "The sedatives are not working properly," said, looking at her. "Process medication differently when they are under stress. His body keeps rejecting our treatments." "Then we stop giving him sedatives," said. Looked at her with surprise. "Without sedation we cannot even clean his wounds. We cannot examine him. He attacks anyone who enters the room." "He does not attack, he defends. There is a difference," pressed her hand against the glass. "He has not had a single moment of safety in over a year. Every time someone entered his cage, it meant pain. Of course he fights back. It is the only choice anyone gave him." "So what do you suggest?" Turned away from the window. Her face was calm, but her heart was beating fast. She was thinking about her grandmother, about the dog, about all the summers of quiet patience. "I suggest we give him a new choice," she said. "I suggest we show him that not every hand brings pain." That night, read file 3 more times. She learned that his family had been killed when the syndicate took him. She learned that he had been forced to fight 17 times before the authorities finally shut down the ring. She learned that he had stopped eating for 2 weeks after his rescue and had to be fed through tubes. She also learned that, before his capture, had loved to sing. Cubs were known for their songs, melodies they learned from their mothers and passed down through generations. No one had heard make any sound except screams and growls since his rescue. Closed the file and looked out her window at the stars. "I will find your song again," she whispered to the darkness. "However long it takes." On the first day, entered its habitat and sat down on the floor. She chose a spot near the door, as far from his corner as possible. She brought nothing with her except a small notebook and a pen. She did not look at him. She did not speak to him. She simply sat there, cross-legged, and began to draw in her notebook. Watched her from behind his wall of cushions. His body was tense, ready to fight or run. His claws were out, pressing into the soft floor. Every muscle in his small body screamed danger. But the human did not move toward him. She just sat there, making small movements with her hand on the paper. After 1 hour, stood up slowly and walked out. She did not say goodbye. She did not look back. On the second day she did the same thing, and on the third, and on the fourth. The station staff began to talk. Some of them thought was wasting her time. Others thought she had lost her mind. Director called her into his office after the first week. "The board is asking for progress reports," he said, his 4 eyes studying her with concern. "What should I tell them?" "Tell them I am making progress," replied. "But you have done nothing. You sit in a room and draw pictures. The cub has not improved at all." Smiled, though it was a tired smile. "Yesterday blinked while watching me. The day before he did not blink once in the entire hour. He was too afraid to close his eyes. Now he blinks. That is progress." Did not understand, but he trusted her. He told the board to wait. 2 weeks passed. Continued her routine. She arrived at the same time every day. She sat in the same spot. She wore the same clothes, washed in the same soap, so that her smell would always be familiar. She hummed quietly while she drew old Korean songs that her grandmother had taught her long ago. Began to change in small ways. He stopped pressing himself so hard against the wall. His claws stayed hidden more often. Sometimes, when hummed a melody, his ears would turn toward her just a little, like he was listening. Her colleague came to watch one day through the observation window. "He is looking at you more," she said. "Before, he only looked at the door. Now he watches you the whole time." "He is trying to understand me," explained. In his experience, every creature wants something from him. They want him to fight. They want him to be afraid. They want to control him. He is waiting to find out what I want. "And what do you want?" Thought for a moment. "I want him to know that some people want nothing at all. Some people just want to sit nearby and share quiet time. He has never known that before." At the end of the third week, something remarkable happened. Was sitting in her usual spot, humming a slow song about mountains and rivers. She had her eyes closed, lost in the memory of her grandmother's voice. When she opened them again, had moved. He was still behind his cushion wall, but he had shifted to a position where he could see her better. He had come out of the deepest shadows. It was only a small change, maybe half a meter of movement, but for it was enormous. Pretended not to notice. She kept humming, she kept drawing, but inside her chest her heart was singing. The fourth week brought rain to the habitat. The station's environmental systems could create weather patterns to help comfort creatures from different worlds. Came from a planet with gentle rains and warm winds. Had requested the rain, hoping it might help feel more at home. When the first drops began to fall from the ceiling, looked up. For a moment, just a moment, something changed in his empty eyes. It was not happiness, not yet, but it was something. A memory, perhaps. A feeling from before his world became pain. Watched him through the falling water. She saw him open his mouth and let a raindrop fall on his tongue. She saw his ears relax just a little. She saw him take a deep breath, the first deep breath she had ever seen him take. Then the moment passed, retreated to his corner, and his eyes became empty again, but had seen it. Somewhere inside that broken child, there was still someone who remembered joy. One night stayed late in her office, writing notes about progress. Her assistant, a young man named, brought her tea. Was new to the station, fresh from medical school on Earth. He had wanted to work with aliens his whole life, but the reality was harder than he had expected. "Dr. Park," he said, sitting down across from her, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why do you keep trying? The cub does not react to you. He does not come closer. He does not make sounds. Other doctors would have given up by now. Why do you believe he can heal?" Wrapped her hands around her teacup, feeling its warmth. She looked out the window at the stars, thinking about her grandmother again. "When I was a little girl," she said slowly, "my grandmother told me a story. She said that every heart has a door. Some doors are open, and people come and go easily. Some doors are closed but not locked, and you only need to knock. But some doors have been locked for so long that the person inside has forgotten they even have a door." She paused, taking a sip of tea. "Has forgotten he has a door. He has been alone in the dark for so long that he does not believe anyone is outside. My job is not to break down his door. My job is to sit outside and hum songs until he remembers the door exists, until he wants to open it himself." Was quiet for a moment, then he nodded. "How long will you wait?" Smiled. "As long as it takes. Humans are good at waiting. It is one of our gifts." The next morning she returned to his habitat. She sat in her usual spot. She opened her notebook. She began to hum. And in his corner, behind his wall of cushions, turned his ears toward her and listened. 2 months had passed since first sat down in his habitat. The artificial seasons on Station 7 had changed twice. Outside the station windows, the same cold stars burned in the endless dark. But inside the habitat, something was slowly, carefully growing. Had started bringing things with her. Not food, because she knew connected food with control. His captors had starved him when he refused to fight and fed him only when he hurt others. Food was a weapon in his mind, so brought other things instead. On the first day she brought a small, smooth stone. It was gray and cool, the size of her thumb, polished by river water on some distant world. She placed it on the floor between them, not too close to him, not too far. Then she sat down and began her usual routine of drawing and humming. When she came back the next day, the stone had been moved. Not taken, not destroyed. Just moved slightly, like small fingers had touched it in the night and then put it back. His heart jumped with hope, but she kept her face calm. She sat down and began to draw. The next week, she brought a piece of soft cloth. It was blue like the evening sky on Earth, and it felt like clouds between her fingers. She left it in the same spot where she had left the stone. This time destroyed it. When arrived the next morning, the cloth was in pieces, scattered across the floor like fallen leaves. She looked at the destruction without anger, without disappointment. She understood. He was testing her. He wanted to know if her kindness would turn to punishment when he did something wrong. She bent down, picked up the pieces, and put them in her pocket. Then she sat down and began to hum. She did not mention the cloth. She did not even look in his direction. The following day, she brought another piece of cloth exactly the same. She left it in the same spot, and she waited. Destroyed this one too, and the next one, and the one after that. Lee came to one evening, her face tight with worry. "You are wasting resources," she said. "The board has noticed. They are asking why you keep giving him things to destroy." "I am not wasting anything," replied softly. "I am showing him something he has never seen before." "What?" "Unconditional giving. In his old life, every gift had a price. Every kindness was a trick. If he broke something, he was beaten. If he failed, he was starved. He is waiting for me to punish him. He is waiting for the real monster to appear behind my smile." Looked at her friend with tired but certain eyes. "I will never punish him. I will give and give and give until he runs out of fear. It might take 100 cloths. It might take 1,000. But eventually, he will understand that I am not a trap." On the 20th cloth, something changed. Arrived to find the blue fabric not in pieces but pushed into a corner of cushion wall. He had kept it. He had added it to his nest. Sat down and cried quietly, hiding her tears behind her notebook. She did not want to see her cry and think he had done something wrong, but she could not stop the water falling from her eyes. After 2 months of patience, he had accepted a gift. The next offering was a small light. It was a tiny machine that projected soft stars onto the ceiling and walls, turned it on and set it on the floor. The habitat filled with gentle points of light, turning slowly like the real stars outside the station windows. His reaction surprised her. He did not destroy the light. He did not push it away. Instead, he stared at it with something new in his eyes, wonder. The same look he had given the rain, but stronger now. He lifted one small paw and tried to touch a star as it drifted across the floor near him. Held her breath. She watched as batted at the lights like a kitten playing with dust in a sunbeam. His movements were clumsy and uncertain, like he had forgotten how to play, but he was doing it. For the first time since his rescue, he was doing something just for joy. Then he caught himself. He looked at, and fear flooded back into his eyes. He retreated to his corner, curling into a tight ball, waiting for punishment. Did nothing. She stayed in her spot. She began to hum a new song, one her grandmother had sung during spring festivals. It was a happy song, a song about flowers and warm winds and children laughing. The next day, the star projector was in its nest beside the blue cloth. A week later, the breakthrough came in a way did not expect. She had caught a cold, a simple human illness that gave her a stuffy nose and a sore throat. She could barely speak, and humming was impossible. Her voice came out as rough croaks instead of smooth melodies. She almost stayed away from the habitat that day, but something told her to go anyway. She had not missed a single day in 2 months. She would not miss today. She sat down in her usual spot, opened her notebook and tried to draw, but without her humming the room felt strange, empty, wrong. The silence pressed against her ears like deep water. Then she heard it. A sound, thin and broken, coming from behind the wall of cushions. It was not a growl. It was not a scream. It was a melody, rough and uncertain like a door creaking open after years of rust, but it was a melody. Was humming. He was trying to make the song she always made. He was filling the silence for her. His eyes filled with tears, her hands shook, but she forced herself to stay still. She picked up the melody with her ruined voice, croaking the notes as best she could. Her throat burned, her eyes streamed, but she kept going. And from across the room, hidden in his nest of cushions and cloth and stars, a broken child sang with her. They hummed together for 20 minutes. It was the most beautiful sound had ever heard. When it was over, when her voice finally gave out completely, she stood up slowly and walked to the door. Just before she left, she turned and looked at. He was looking back at her, and for the first time his eyes were not empty. "Thank you for the song," she whispered. She did not know if he understood her words, but she knew he understood her heart. The video spread across the galactic networks like fire across dry grass. Someone on the station had recorded the moment when first touched hand. Someone else had recorded him climbing into her lap. The images traveled from system to system, translated into 100 languages, watched by billions of eyes on thousands of worlds. The comments flooded in from everywhere. A species known for logic and order wrote long essays about the inefficiency of human emotional investment, but many of them admitted they had watched the video multiple times. Something about it would not let them look away. Who communicated through colors and light patterns, created beautiful displays of blue and gold to honor the moment. Blue for peace, gold for hope. They said they had never seen anything like it. Sent an official message of thanks to Station 7. They called a soul healer and said she had given their lost child back to them. Many families offered to adopt when he was ready. But not everyone was happy. Some species looked at the video and felt fear. If humans could do this, if they could make themselves loved by a creature who had been broken beyond repair, what else could they do? What happened when humans decided to use this strange power for war instead of healing? Director addressed these concerns in his report to the Galactic Council. He stood before the great circular chamber, his 4 eyes scanning the representatives from hundreds of worlds. "I have worked with humans for 15 years, he said, his deep voice filling the room. "I have seen them heal creatures that our best doctors had given up on. I have seen them form bonds with beings so different from them that they share almost nothing in common. And I have asked myself the same question many of you are asking now. How do they do it? What makes them different?" He paused, letting the silence build. "The answer is simple. Humans do not stop. They do not know when to quit. They will sit in a room with a broken child for months, doing nothing but humming songs until that child remembers how to trust. They will offer their hearts again and again, knowing they might be rejected, knowing they might be hurt. They call this stubbornness. They call it patience. They call it love." Looked directly at the representative, who was crying openly. "I am recommending that human-led rehabilitation programs be expanded to every sector of the galaxy, not because humans are better than us, but because they have something we need. They have the ability to wait, to hope, to believe that even the most damaged soul can heal." The vote was unanimous. The recommendation passed. Back on Station 7, knew nothing about politics or votes or galactic reports. She was too busy watching play. It had been 1 month since the breakthrough. In that time had transformed. He ran through his habitat now, chasing the projected stars, jumping on cushions, splashing in his pool. He groomed himself every day and had gained enough weight that his ribs no longer showed. His scars were still visible, but they seemed smaller now, less important, just part of his story rather than the whole thing. He had started making sounds again. Not just humming, but real sounds. Chirps and clicks and the beautiful rising songs that his species was known for. The first time heard him sing a complete melody, she sat down on the floor and wept with joy. They had chosen a family for. They were a couple who had lost their own cub to the syndicate years ago. They had seen video and had begged to be considered. When reviewed their application, she found that the mother had spent 10 years working in trauma recovery. The father was a musician who composed healing songs for wounded soldiers. They were perfect. On his last day at Station 7, the whole staff came to say goodbye. The guards who had carried his cage now stood at attention as he walked past, their 4 arms raised in a gesture of respect. The medical team who had struggled to treat him now watched with proud smiles as he moved confidently through the corridors. But was not interested in any of them. He was looking for one person. He found in her office, packing up the notebook she had filled with drawings during their months together. When he appeared in the doorway, she looked up and smiled, but there was sadness in her eyes too. "You came to say goodbye," she said. Walked toward her slowly, not with the fear he had once shown, but with purpose. When he reached her chair, he climbed into her lap without asking, the way he had done every day since the breakthrough. He pressed his face against her chest, feeling her heartbeat. "I will miss you," whispered in Korean, stroking his fur. The translator on's collar turned her words into sounds he could understand. He looked up at her with his golden eyes, so different now from the empty windows they had been 3 months ago. They were full of things: love, gratitude, a sadness that matched her own. He made a sound, and the translator spoke for him. "My human." Tears fell onto his fur again, but she was smiling. She held him tight, memorizing his warmth, his smell, the way his ears twitched when he was happy. "Yes," she said, "you're human always." They stayed like that for an hour. Neither of them wanted to let go, but eventually the transport ship's signal chimed and knew it was time. She carried to the docking bay herself. His new family was waiting there, their faces full of hope and nervousness. The mother stepped forward first, her golden fur shining, her eyes wet with tears. "Thank you," she said to in the way, pressing her forehead against his palm. "Thank you for saving him." Shook her head. "He saved himself. I just kept him company while he remembered how." She sat down gently. He looked at his new family, then back at. For a moment, she was afraid he would refuse to go, that he would cling to her and break both their hearts. But was stronger than anyone had ever given him credit for. He had survived things that would have destroyed most creatures. He had found his way back from a darkness that should have swallowed him forever. He could do this too. He walked to his new mother and let her pick him up. She held him close, humming a lullaby that had never heard before. Ears relaxed, his eyes closed, he looked peaceful. As the family walked toward the transport, looked back one last time. He raised his small paw in the gesture had taught him. A wave, a human wave, a tiny piece of earth carried across the stars. Waved back, tears streaming down her face, her heart fuller than it had ever been. The transport doors closed, the engines hummed to life, and then they were gone. Came to stand beside her, watching the ship disappear into the darkness between stars. "What will you do now?" he asked. Wiped her eyes and took a deep breath. The galaxy was vast. There were other broken children on other stations, waiting for someone who would not give up on them, waiting for a hand that would stay open no matter how many times they turned away. "The same thing I always do," she said. "I will find the next one, and I will wait." Because that was what humans did. They waited, they hoped, they loved. And sometimes, against all odds, it was enough.